Hello, listeners. There's a hype recently about the Trump effect, what a second term means for the world. So, in today's episode, we are going to discuss what will be the effect of the Trump resuming its office. Donald Trump has recently been re elected as the President of the United States, and naturally, this news has sparked a wave of discussions about how his return to the White House might impact the economy. Not just in the US, but around the world, there would be a lot of impact. There's a lot to cover here, from his plans for trade and tariffs to how the US will manage its national debt. Let's break it down step by step in a simple way. What you should know first. First of all, when political leaders discuss the changes in the policy, especially big promises, we often don't see everything going exactly as planned. Many campaign promises face obstacles in the real world implementation, especially with political and economic forces at play that are beyond the control of them. Also, we need to see that there would be a lot of changes happening. Also, economic shifts don't happen overnight. While it's easy to get caught up in dramatic headlines, it's important to remember that markets are influenced by many factors. For example, technology, demographics, and global trade patterns that don't change as quickly as the policies. With this in mind, let's explore Trump's proposed plans and how they might shape the economy, starting with his major policy focuses. So the first one is the Trump's key economic policies and their impact on the US and the world. Trump's economic agenda centers around a few major areas: tariffs, interest rates, the dollar, and the Federal Reserve. These themes were important during his first term, and he's bringing them back with some updates. Tariffs, a made in America approach they are utilizing. One of the Trump's main policy is proposing taxes on imported goods. His America First agenda aims to bring manufacturing back to the US, including a proposed 10% tariff on all the imports and a 60% tariffs on goods from the China. This means US companies importing foreign products would have to pay extra fees, potentially making American made goods more appealing. However, tariffs can be a double-edged sword. While they are meant to protect American jobs by making US made products cheaper than foreign alternatives, they also tend to increase the cost for business and consumers. Why? Because when companies pay more to the import materials, they often pass those extra costs onto the consumers. Some companies have already indicated they would raise the price as a result because they would not be stopping their imports, but they would be raising the cost. Interestingly, Trump's approach isn't the same. His predecessor, Joe Biden, also imposed tariffs on China, focusing on products like electric vehicles and solar panels. This bipartisan stance shows a broader trend of protecting US industries from foreign competition, a trend that may continue. However, the next point we are discussing is how Trump's plan could impact the US debt and the inflation. Another major topic is the US debt and inflation. The national debt represents how much the government owes, and it has been growing rapidly in the US. Trump's proposed tax cuts and increased spending, especially on defense and infrastructure, would likely add to that debt. Experts estimate that Trump's policies could raise the national debt by $7.75 trillion by 2035, pushing it to an all time high. To put it simply, it would be like someone taking out more loans and owing more money than ever before. High debt can lead to higher borrowing costs because lenders demand higher interest rates when lending to a heavily indebted country. Trump's policies could also lead to a higher inflation. Increased spending and new tariffs could push the prices up, with experts estimating inflation might rise up to 7.4% over the next few years if all of Trump's plans are enacted. Another concern is the independence of the Federal Reserve, which controls the US interest rates and typically operates without political pressure. If Trump influences the Fed, it could lead to political driven interest rate changes, potentially allowing inflation to rise to support government spending. This might worry some investors and push interest rates even higher, making borrowings more costly in the US. Now, the third is global implications. How other countries could be affected by this Trump's new rule. These changes won't just impact the US, they will ripple across the global economy, especially since the US dollar is the world's reserve currency, relied on by many countries. Higher US debt and rising inflation could push up the dollar's value and increase US bond yields, the return on lending money to the US. This might lead investors around the world to shift their money into the US, causing outflows from emerging markets and putting pressure on their economies. and yes, the India could face the same trouble. Countries like Turkey, Brazil, and South Africa, which rely on stable dollar financing, could face higher borrowing costs and currency issues. If investors pull money out of these markets to reinvest it in the US, these countries could experience higher inflation, currency swings, and overall the economic strain in their country. Fourth, we would be talking about the trade impact of Trump's policies on the global market. Trump's trade approach aims to reduce imports, particularly from China, to boost the US manufacturing. While this could lead support the local jobs, it may also lead to retaliation from other countries with their own tariff, making life tougher for the US exporters. For example, if the EU or China responds with tariffs on American goods, US companies that depend on global sales, like those in agriculture and technology, could suffer from it. China, being one of the US largest trade partners, would be hit hard. If tariffs stick around, China might seek out new trade partners or put more focus on strengthening its domestic economy. The EU has considered retaliatory tariffs or taxes on US goods, especially in sectors like automotive and steel. This could impact European economies that depend on exports to the US, such as Germany, potentially slowing their growth if trade tensions escalate. Fifth, we would be talking about the emerging markets, potential winners and the losers. The emerging markets, such as the US, rely on the India, Brazil, and Southeast Asian countries would face both challenges and opportunities from the Trump's policies. For instance, India has a strong trade relationship with the US. So, higher tariffs or a strong dollar could raise costs for Indian exports in sectors like the information technology, pharmaceuticals, and the textiles. On the other hand, some emerging economies might benefit. Mexico, for example, could attract more manufacturing demand if US companies chose to move operations away from China. Then the Mexico is the one who would be benefiting from it. Similarly, countries like Vietnam and Thailand in Southeast Asia might draw business looking to avoid US-China tariffs. But there's a downside too. If global trade slows overall, even these countries could see reduced demand for their exports. Sixth, we would be talking about the geopolitical impacts. A changing global power structure. Trump's America First approach is likely to create ripple effects on a geopolitical level too. His trade and defense policies could change relationships between the US and major global players. For example, the already tensed US-China relationship could become even more strained if Trump moves forward with plans to limit Chinese access to US. This could force countries in Asia like Japan and South Korea to rethink their strategies as they heavily rely on the trade with both superpowers. In Europe, Trump's approach might push the United Nations and the EU to become more independent, particularly in areas like defense. This could lead to new alliances as the EU seeks to strengthen economic ties with the regions outside the US for African nations involved in China's Belt and Road Initiative. Trump's policies could force them to choose between competing US and China investment. What next? Staying alert to uncertainties. There's still a lot we don't know. Political plans are one thing, but real-world implementations often plays out differently. Factors like Congress, international relationships, and unexpected global events could change these outcomes in ways we can't fully predict. While Trump's agenda is ambitious, its actual impact will depend on how these policies unfold both in the US and around the world. By keeping an eye on the major trends and understanding the basics, we can better grasp these developments and their potential future effects. So I hope that you have now understood that how the Trump effect would affect the economy and the Indian economy. If you have liked our video, do subscribe to our channel Vishwakul and like our video and share it with your friends for more such interesting contents. Thank you, listeners.